PEMF is now used across, we've spoken about the medical applications, we've spoken about the kind of home applications, but maybe not so much in the professional athlete side. It's being used in NFL, NLB, other professional sports and organizations. But why do you think people are leaning in the elite sports now to PEMF so much more recently than they ever have?
I think it's being driven in part by the players. So with our systems, we have a presence in many professional training facilities with sports teams, but we also have many of our systems in the homes of players because they can actually easily use the system. They can sit down at night after they've played or trained or in the off season, and they could just sit there and get the benefits of it. But it's a great supplement to augment all the training and therapeutic things that they're getting within the sports team and the training facility itself. But I do think that the more that people are using the system within the sports world, the more they're communicating with one another. We just had a basketball team put our systems in because a baseball team in the same city, the trainer spoke and they told them, if you don't have the system, you need it. And that was all they really needed to really buy the system. What we find, Andy, is that with the high intensity system, there could be a lot of conversation that we get into around what the system does and why it does it and what it can help with, but trying it makes a big difference. So that demonstration often is what makes people in their brains click and say, I feel it. So the speed with which people can actually feel some improvement with the high intensity system is why some of these sports teams and players find it so beneficial. They can actually use it. It fits in well with the way they actually use therapy within their system. Some of the things that you mentioned are other modalities and technologies that they use already. So it's a great complement to many of those things.
Yeah, and it was, I like what you said at the beginning where it's very player driven because, we sold a device to a player called Sergio Aguero, who, was a huge Premier League player at the time. And he moved from, I believe it was a Spanish club, over to Man City in the UK. And it was in his transfer agreement. His transfer agreement was, you have to find and source one of these PEMF devices for me to come over. And that's what they did. So it's quite interesting, actually. It's not always the clubs that are driving these, but actually the players that are like, since I've introduced this product, it's up my game. So it has to follow me around.
And that's a great point. We have it's a little bit of a mystery in some ways, how technologies like ours make it into places, and once it does, our hope and objective is to make sure that they're using it as much as possible, right? We know what it will do, and what we've seen are those teams that actually do that. When those players get traded, they go somewhere else. If they don't have it, it's one of the first things that they ask about. And we've had some professional players, even very recently, get traded. They get to a new team, they don't have the technology, and they don't want to wait for the team to actually adopt it. So the player just buys it for themselves and puts it in their homes. We also, interestingly, have some team owners that own our equipment, but they don't have it in their team training facilities. So we know that there's some really interesting dynamics, and it differs from team to team about how the education process works for the different doctors and therapists involved, for how they make decisions for what to bring in. But what we have found is that when players will ask and sometimes demand, it makes the biggest and fastest impact.
Yeah. And have you personally noticed the differences between the sports and how they use or adapt PEMF? Like, for example, does the NFL team use it differently to an MLB team, maybe?
I think it's more in the application. There's certain injuries that are more prevalent in MLB than within the NFL. Outside of that, we generally think that it's more specific to the therapists that are using it and the doctors that are using it. They also tend to find the things that they think work well, and they'll want to reuse those, more consistently. Our objective is to really help guide them, even if there's a particular injury that the PEMF system will help in conjunction with all the other things that they're doing. Please do the whole body too. That's going to
Mm,
bring faster results, even for a knee or an ankle. Get that whole body in there so that they have a little bit more time to get that energy everywhere.
mhm. And doing some research on this episode before, I heard you mention that LeBron James bought his own pulse system. Um, are there other athletes, teams, or maybe even just demographic of people that are buying into high intensity PMF that may surprise people?
So our systems really do go across all the different professional sports, uh, football, baseball, soccer, basketball, tennis, even golf. And I think
Mhm,
golf is one of those that people might be surprised. Uh, Bull riders are using
mhm,
our system. It really does cut across. There's a number of entertainers that use our system, and they're using it for recovery and, in some cases, just to address fatigue that they have. So it really does cut across a very wide swath of different types of people in the sports world, but even going into the entertainment industry as well.
yeah, no, good. And we kind of talked about stacking and using it in clinics, combining PMF therapy with other therapies like hyperbaric, red light, cold exposure, IV, you name it. But why do you think PMF works so well alongside these other modalities?
I think it comes back to ATP. A cell can benefit from so many different things, but uh, the magnetic fields that our systems put out do travel through the body. Even the lower intensity systems do travel through the body because they're effortlessly common and natural to our body, right? We know, and for those listeners that are unfamiliar, the earth puts out a magnetic field. And that magnetic field is really critical to our body's ability to function. A PEMF basically mimics that with different frequencies and different intensities, but it's so natural and so beneficial, but it does, again, something different. Red light is amazing, but it doesn't go all the way through the body. If it did, if it was behind you, that red light would shine through your front. It doesn't. That mechanical energy gets absorbed. So it will only go so deep. Um, uh, this is a little speaker that we buy on Amazon. We
Mm,
think spend $2 for it, and it comes connected to some wires. We actually cut the wires, and this is a speaker with no power. When people are on our system, and most PEMF systems would do this, if the magnetic field was coming out from behind me, if I would put that speaker in front of me on my sternum, the magnetic fields traveling through my body would actually make that speaker chirp.
mhm,
So something you can't see, those magnetic fields, you can hear as they're passing through the speaker.
mhm,
There are very few other things that actually do that, that actually can influence all the cells in the body. Cold and everything else that you mentioned all have their place. They're different than what PEMF is, but PEMF can help bring energy deep into the body. And that is very valuable. So if those cells now have more energy, ATP, then all of these other modalities can actually do even better. Not everything, again, can actually influence the cells that PEMF can reach.
mhm. No, it's a great point because we've got those little, we call them clickers, and they're
Yeah.
good to pick up magnetic field to show people it passing through the body. And we found some that are particularly sensitive, so we can use them on low intensity systems and show how the PMF goes through the body. But funny enough, you mentioned earlier about going to the exhibition in Austin, and you and I were on two stands, far enough away, but close enough maybe just to throw, a stone to each other. But the funny thing is, we're using these clickers and we're actually picking up pulses, magnetic field, and same vice versa. You're probably picking up some VARs, but it just shows you the range of these devices, especially in the high intensity range. We wasn't expecting to see such a big magnetic field coming from them. But it shows you that it's going through body, it's going through everything that's in that area, and that's why PMFs originally, very very early on, were used for telecommunication purposes, and still are in the higher frequencies.
Right.
But when we stack these two, when we stack PMF therapy with other modalities, I know it depends on the modality, but if you had to say one, is there a particular place generally where you would put PMF? So would it be before, during, or after those modalities when PMF is most effective and recommended to do?